I am so excited for you to hear this interview today with Eleanor Beaton. So I just got off of this interview, and I kid you not, I say it during the interview. I could have kept going for hours and hours. That is the kind of inspiration that Eleanor is for me. So I first heard Eleanor on a podcast years ago, and she really was one of those women that just made me want to learn more, do more, be better. So I started following her everywhere. And as a business owner, I have learned so much. And then I noticed about a year, 18 months ago, she started posting stories on Instagram about her weightlifting journey. And I reached out to her recently and said, can you please come on the podcast? I would love to have you on to talk about this journey that you've been on, the logistics behind it. What does it look like for you? What prompted you to go on this journey? How are you incorporating it into your life as a busy mom and business owner? So Eleanor's here today to talk all about that. And we get into even deeper messaging around how our actions really affect those around us, including our kids, and how we as women need to be allowing ourselves to do things for ourselves and how powerful that is. So I'm so excited to bring you this conversation today. I want to tell you a little more about Eleanor. So Eleanor Beaton is the founder of Safi Media, a coaching and education company dedicated to doubling the number of women founders who sustainably scale to 1 million plus by 2030. And she's the host of the Women Owned podcast, now ranked in the top 0.5% of all podcasts globally, providing insights and strategies to empower women entrepreneurs. Since 2016, Eleanor has provided training to over 25,000 women entrepreneurs worldwide. She's a former chair of the Visiting Women's Executive Exchange Program at the Yale School of Management, and she has won national awards for her achievements in entrepreneurship, leadership development, and business journalism. She lives in Nova Scotia with her husband and her 2 sons. I know that you will be so inspired by this real conversation between 2 women who are just excited to listen to each other, to provide information, and to grow our communities. We talk so much about how, as women, we can really learn from each other and from the voices around us. So I hope that that does the same thing for you today. Here is my interview with Eleanor Beaton. Eleanor, thank you so much for being here on Meet Your Body today.
It's such a privilege to be with you.
I am so excited. I'm so excited to bring you to everyone else. So you guys listening, we were just having a chat beforehand that both of us, we've never met before, but we feel like we're kind of talking to a friend, and that's what social media does, which is one of the beauties of social media. There's 2 sides to social media, but that is one of the beauties of it. So I hope you all feel the same after this episode, that you go find Eleanor on social, on her podcast. You'll just feel like you've kind of added this friend to your circle. So to get started, will you tell us all your story? Whichever part of the story you want us to know, I want everyone to know it as well.
Oh my gosh, I love that question. So I'm a mom of 2 boys. They are both teenagers now. I have been married to my husband, Leon, for over 20 years. I grew up in Canada on the East Coast. We immigrated here when I was a kid. My sports and athleticism and fitness and health were a huge part of my growing up. So my mom, she was from the Fiji Islands. My dad was Welsh. We moved to Canada. She was the breadwinner when my parents first met. And then when they decided to come to Canada for a job that my dad had, she had to kind of redo all of her teaching designations. And because the culture was so different, she decided to stay at home and be a stay-at-home mom for up until basically I was 18 years old. Then she reclaimed her career. So her, I can remember her driving me to basketball practice, and she and my dad had a disagreement about how to invest money. And because he was the primary breadwinner, his opinion generally carried more weight in the context of our family at that time. And so she was driving me to basketball practice, and she's like, Eleanor, always, money is power, always make your own. And so that concept of financial empowerment and the importance of financial independence has been, I think, a real through line of my entire career. But the other aspect of my mom, like I can remember, she was an excellent squash player and an excellent weightlifter. So she was like benching the 45s and squatting like 210 pounds in the gym long before like lifting heavy was a thing.
Oh
So
yeah.
she'd be literally the only woman in the gym. She had a big afro. Everybody stared at her all the time, but also like held her in such high respect. And I spent hours of my childhood because she didn't want to get a babysitter. So I'd be like sitting there on the sidelines watching her play squash and win, and then watching her in the weight room lifting heavy weights. So really my mom, like when I think about my story, my mom's influence in terms of things that she couldn't do and things that she did do have really shaped a huge part of my story and how I show up in the world today.
That is such a powerful lesson. We have so much power over messages on others around us. And yeah, whether it's our daughters, our sons, kids, if we're a teacher, your mom probably had no idea that just by doing what she wanted to do, she was shaping that in you. And I love that she was doing something that we somehow see as selfish. I feel like as moms, and I don't know if that's changed or if it was the same for her. Did you ever feel that from her that it was hard for her to go out and do something for herself, or did it feel easy for her to carve out that time?
It felt easy for her. So the thing, and again, like amazing example. So my mother absolutely, like she made sacrifices and that she didn't work, for 18 years, and raised us. She moved away from her entire family. So she made a lot of quite ballsy decisions, in pursuit of a different life. But the interesting thing about my mom, so my mom's family, they're kind of like she's descended from this chiefly family in Fiji. And the interesting thing about that is that, so because of that, she just sort of had this sense of, I deserve this, and even though she's a very humble person, but it's very much like, I deserve this. And so, well, of course, you may be 6 years old and bored out of your tree, but you will sit and wait until I'm completed my squash game. You know what I mean? Like, so it was really powerful. I think that prioritizing herself and prioritizing her health. I think the difficult thing was having to drag her kids because, quite frankly, they didn't really have the extra money to be hiring babysitters, and my mom didn't trust anyone anyway. So that was the hard part, just the pain of having to take your kid to the gym. But she just did it, and it didn't bother her at all that I was bored at all, not at all, So I think that sent a very powerful message, which is just the primacy of prioritizing health and well-being. And that sort of rubric was laid over my life and my outlook because even through, it's as a young mom of young kids, it's so hands-on, so full on. And I continued to prioritize my health because that was the standard. Right. I think it's like so often when I think about well-being, I think about what standards do I have for myself? And as women, we can have very complicated relationships with standards, especially if there's standards from others that we didn't choose. But that was a standard that she always set. And I have really, the more I reflect on it, the more I'm so grateful to have that standard set. Yeah.
And I would love to know, because we're going to get back to like your current fitness journey for sure, but to backtrack a little, how did that, and those of you listening, you heard in the intro what Eleanor does. I mean, powerful, powerful stuff. So I want to dive into that a little bit. How do you feel, I guess going back, did you have a moment where you realized you weren't going to get into fitness for a job and you went a different direction? Or did it feel like they all came together? What led you a little bit to what you do now? And then how does that message from your mom work in that career and that space?
Yeah. I think as far as how it sort of shaped what I do, it shaped what I do primarily from a blueprint and mindset. So I remember, and for a lot of very silly reasons, I felt like I couldn't get into. I didn't think that health and fitness were were a real career, was a real career option for me growing up. I felt like I had to do something like be a lawyer or an investment banker. We're so youth. you know,
Mm-hmm.
we're so limited in so many ways at that age. But that's kind of what I thought. But I really, if I were, back then I was like, if I could just do whatever I wanted, I would totally own a gym and be a trainer. And, like this is what I would devote my life to, because it's one of the things that I like the most. To this day, it's still one of my greatest joys. I still play soccer every week. Like I am out there doing stuff. But I think it was the mindset. So there's a few things. So number one is that this idea of there are aspects of health and well-being and fitness. This is not the full picture, but there are aspects about it which are about competition.
Yes.
And healthy competition and striving. And so that has been a huge part of my approach, like not being afraid to lean in. And I think if also seeing what my mom could do. So she was like benching the 45-pound plates, which is, you don't see a lot of women able to do that. She was benching them up into her 70s.
Amazing.
Like really strong,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what I really saw from that was a real mindset around we are capable of much more than we think we're capable of. And the challenge is where the growth is, and the willingness to embrace that challenge. And I sometimes see in business and in career and in leadership, especially now, there's a whole messaging around in our efforts to avoid burnout, which is a real thing and very important. I think we have sort of the pendulum has swung where we don't embrace gritty, hard challenges as a pathway to growth. So I think that has been the real place where this sort of upbringing has impacted my career. It's in the how, not necessarily the what.
Yes. And I think that is so powerful. And I find myself in that space really the past few years. I mean, back and forth swinging because I went through severe nervous system craziness around
Yeah.
2020. And it took me about 2 years to realize what it was and had to intentionally say, I have to heal this nervous system. I cannot sustain this. I
Yeah.
can't keep going. And we do, you're right, when that message becomes, okay, I just need to rest, which is such an important message. You all hear me say it all the time. We do
Totally.
need to rest. And also, that doesn't mean it's easy necessarily. There's still going to be challenge. Maybe it's in the rest, or maybe it's in the I have to get back up and do this. Um, how have you, within that kind of playing both sides and swinging the pendulum back and forth, how do you personally kind of nourish that nervous system or stay in that place of rest while also, yes, this is a challenge and I'm going to embrace it and I'm going to work my way through it? Because I think the message, and I feel myself when I say that of, okay, if I have to work through it, I'm going to brace. I'm going to not eat. I'm going to not drink. I'm going to not sleep. Like, I
Yes.
have to brace this challenge. How do we like open arms? Yes, this is awesome. I want to embrace this.
So I love that. I think that for me, and I mean, I am not an expert in this. I think all I can do is share my own experience and story. And sometimes that helps people to put this other like rubric and lens against it. So also like if I say something that you're like, maybe don't guys follow that. Like say it. I don't mind,
Oh, they've heard me say everything half the time. They're like, Jessica, no thanks. I'm good.
So I would say I've always been a person who is very interested in what I can do consistently. So consistency is just such a bedrock of my life, to a place where sometimes I have to really encourage myself to bust out of consistency. But I'm very interested in what I can do consistently. And this concept of rest, I was having a conversation with some girlfriends recently who were talking a lot about healing things. And I'm like, I don't even know what you mean. Tell me what you mean by healing. And then we were talking about rest. And like to me, bears hibernate, which is like a big long sleep once a year. And humans sleep every day. Like we rest every day. And so I always, for me, it's been about what can I sustain? And also, like, what are the circumstances of my life?
Yeah.
What are my goals? And between those two things, what are the habits that I need? So, example, when my kids were younger, I was younger, I had more energy. I don't, that baseline level of energy isn't, that doesn't need the same nurturing. It's not there anymore. So I pushed it, and so I was definitely more stressed than I am now because of the circumstances of my life combined with my goals. I was in a major building phase. I still am, but I had more energy and I had the pressure of just the physical tedious, that's not a negative thing. There's so much work and labor involved in having young kids. So at that time, I really pushed myself. I was more tired. I started getting like muffin top. I was drinking more wine than I probably should have. I was just doing a lot of things to maintain a baseline status quo to be able to push. Was it healthy? It's interesting. When I look at the longevity of my life, no, it wasn't the healthiest phase I've ever been in, but I'm not mad at myself for doing it, Now I am in a different phase, so I don't have to set my alarm clock anymore. And I have a lot more time. So I really prioritize sleep, big time prioritize sleep. I do not set my alarm clock. I wake up when I wake up. And that's been really, everything is different now because the circumstances of my life are so different. But I would say that for me, the challenge now is, is my motivation more about not losing this cushy existence that I have? Or is it more about continuing to challenge myself to grow and push and see what I'm capable of? Whereas when I was younger, it was like, girl, you got to make something of yourself here. So I think drive and motivation and our relationship to those things impacts, for me, it has so much impacted the how hard I'm pushing myself, how hard I'm willing to. I think, in 2020, it was hard to be a business owner.
Yeah.
So I remember going through a period of, like 3 months where I had to really simmer down as well myself. I felt like I didn't have the language, but it was definitely nervous system issues, right? Like I was like, oh my God. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question. It's a bit of a rambling answer, but it's been my experience.
No, I think it's so great. And I think that's exactly the lesson, that it is different for all of us. And we don't all have to be at the same engine level. Like we're all a little different. We have different engines. So one person's high RPM is going to be different than someone else's, but also it changes in different seasons of life and different ages and different motivations. I mean, you're exactly right. The things that motivated me in my 20s wouldn't now, and vice versa. And I also really love the point that you said sleep is like one of the biggest motivations or the things you prioritize. You didn't list off 20 things, right? Like you're not trying to say within this busy life I have, I'm also changing these 20 things. You've worked since you were young to say, this is my motivation. My health is my priority. Like you said, you've had seasons of it going up and down. But right now, just having that one main focus is moving the needle for you. Totally. And I think that is really important. We really think we just add this whole other overloaded bucket of, oh, now it's self-care, when maybe you can just do one or two things at a time.
Yeah. And it's also, I think it's this, sometimes I'm like, do we ever actually grow up? And I wonder this because I keep learning, and I feel like I keep learning how to be a woman, so there was a time, like through my growing up, I was really learning a lot about how to train, how to exercise, how to train. That was the thing I was most interested in. And I worked with great trainers. I just learned a lot about how to train, and I'm still learning. And so then that became a habit, and then I realized I didn't really know how to eat properly. And so then I spent I'm going to say 3 years working with a nutritionist, learning being able to look at meals and understand, am I actually getting the nutrients that I need? So it took me 3 years in my 40s to learn how to do that. I can remember going through a phase where I didn't realize I was sedentary as hell. So I had to learn. So every few years I would layer on another piece, and literally every few years,
Yeah.
right? And it would take, because these are habits of well-being, and they're not like, I remember reading that the hardest studies are to monitor are studies that relate to diet,
Mm.
because they never know. It's so hard to enforce, a diet, because it's such a lifestyle thing. So lifestyle changes for me have happened in yearly increments, in increments of multiple years. So now I'm in my sleep era,
Yeah.
because I have really learned that for me, the most important thing I can do is to maintain very high energy. Like, I am happiest when I have lots of energy.
Mhm.
And so right now, sleep is the one thing. So I'm
Yes.
really learning, how do I sleep well?
Yeah. And I think that long-term approach, it's going to make it more consistent, but also that naturally. So you're doing a lot of things and you have, like you said, kind of that push and even that
Yeah.
inner competitiveness that you
Yes.
just are naturally born with and learned from your mom. But also, 3 years is a long time. So it's like you kind of take that, okay, I'm going to embrace this, but you're not jumping in and changing it all the time. So your nervous system stays pretty status quo. It's
Yeah.
almost like that idea of the frog in the boiling water. I mean, that's what you're kind of
Yeah.
doing to your nervous system is, hey, I'm changing things, but you're not even going to notice
Yeah.
because I'm doing it very intentionally and very purposefully, and we're doing it together. And it's okay if we have a good day, and it's okay if we have a harder day, and we're just going to work together. So in 2 or 3 years, there we are.
Yes.
I mean, that's how things work. That's how things get done.
It's how things get done. And
Yeah.
it's like this sort of wild swinging back and forth.
Yeah.
It feels, it feels, that feels like a thing that young people do,
Yeah.
even though lots of older people do it. And in my view, I'm just like, I'm not there anymore. I don't need to do this. It's not fitting of my station in life.
You said, did you watch White Lotus, by the way, the most recent
Right.
season?
Like, but it's
Parker
just,
Posey's character is so good. So good.
right. And it's like, I also feel, so I'm 47 years old, and,
Yeah.
um, there's this sisterhood, there's this, there's this passing down of knowledge that women, that's so important for women. And because our culture is such a social media focused culture, and because of that, voices of really young people we tend to hear, like women in their 20s and even 30s, that we hear a lot of, and that's great. But what I didn't have in my 20s and 30s was the life experience that I have now, and knowledge about how to do things.
Yeah.
And I think that oral tradition is really important for women. And so I think that's why having platforms like this and the ability to share what we do is so critical. So yeah, I'm not running around like, I'm not pursuing the latest. Am I now using beef tallow as a moisturizer because it's big on? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. But like, that's a little thing, I'm in general, I'm not like, following every fitness trend, every trend out there, and getting myself into a tizzy because of it.
Yeah. No, that's so great. And that is a perfect segue. I want to bring you on, and you guys will see if you go find Eleanor. I'm not going to explain your journey. I'm going to let you explain it, but I want to hear about, and I say weightlifting because those are the stories that I really watched. I mean, you
Yes.
talking about lifting heavy, you were
Yes.
lifting heavy. So
Yes.
tell us how this started, when it started, your decision behind it, all of the things.
Okay, so I've been lifting weights since I was 18 years old, because I was spending so much time with my mom in the gym. So I've always lifted weights. And, and then I moved to a new town, and I decided that I hadn't been working with a trainer. It had been a few months since I'd worked with my last trainer. So I was going to work with a new trainer. And so I did. And the trainer was this, I think he was 23 years old. He was 23 years old. He just graduated from the university of my town. He was a
Bless.
football player, right? And so I was like, oh, jeepers, and what I plan to go in is talk to him, be like, have you ever trained women who are potentially entering perimenopause? All of this stuff. So he's in a completely different life phase, and also has I would say, sort of attitude towards just pushing it and risk that men of that age have. And so he asked me what my goals were, and my goals have always been strength goals. I was like, I have always wanted to squat the 45-pound plates, and I hadn't been able to do that. So it's 135 pounds. I was like, my goal is to be able to do this. So we just worked on simple lifts, which were squats, deadlift, bench press,
Okay.
and pull-ups. And that's still like the foundation of my exercise, or my foundation of everything is those 4 exercises. Of course I do others, but so it was through that I started really focusing on building strength and muscle. And so I went from doing reps of squats of like, I used to do 12 to 15 reps to doing closer to like 6, sometimes even 4, sometimes 3, lifting much heavier. And I started to really surprise myself. So 2 things surprised me. One is how much my workouts changed. So I did fewer exercises. They were much more intense, but I was much more energized.
Okay.
My body seemed to love this strength building. And I started to realize, wow, I think I'm stronger than I realized. So that, and I only worked out with him for about 6 months, and then he went on. And then I, started training with my new person. So now I'm like, it's so interesting. So now if I'm doing a deload rest week, I'll squat what used to be my big life goal, So now I squat and deadlift and bench press like quite a bit heavier. And it has been a ride. I am literally now my mom in the gym. So I work out in a university gym. I could be the mom of like 3/4 of the people in there. I'm a lot stronger than a lot of them. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm just like, and it always to me is such a reminder. So it's scary to do big lifts. It's scary to squat a lot because you might have to bail.
Mm-hmm.
And bailing on squats, like the bailing is you get to the bottom of your squat and you can't move it. And it's embarrassing. You have to it's just kind of scary sometimes. And I have to get myself into the right mindset. But literally, and I can say this to your audience, and guys, I'm a peace lover, but literally when I finish a big lift, I'm like, I could eat everybody here for breakfast and still be hungry. That's my energy. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
but
we sometimes talk about like rage lifting. Like, okay, if you're having a hard time in the world right now, sometimes you need to like take a rest and meditate. Sometimes you need to go rage lift because it will make you feel better. You get that out, you get that anger and that energy out, and it does. There's nothing like feeling strong.
It's amazing. Yeah. And it's also like, and I realized that strength is so much about your nervous system. So it's about the coordination and and I didn't learn this, and that showed me. So to me, the gym is a training ground. It's where I go to train my mind, that I can challenge myself, taking on hard things does not mean burnout. For me, HIIT workouts, like endless cardio, all this stuff that I used to do that seems low impact. That's the stuff that actually for me personally is much more draining now. I can bring high levels of intensity. So I really think about how can I bring high levels of intensity, because you can do that for a long time. It doesn't drain you the way that for me, like ongoing grind does. So that's been my fitness journey. Right now, I'm trying to squat 225 with full range of motion. So like I've squatted 225 before. It's pretty ugly. But I mean like right the way down and up. That's what I'm really working on, and benching the 45s with full range of motion, multiple reps. Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
That's awesome. And how to get into nitty gritty, how many times a week are you lifting?
Yep.
Because with heavy, I want everyone to understand it is different. Like, and the time that you're there is different.
Yes.
So tell us how many days a week, how long usually, and then what else you're doing. Cause I know you love to walk as much as I love to walk.
So basically I train 4 times a week. I do 2 days are lower body, 1 day is upper body, and 1 is a bit of a mix. And usually, and every day it's like a push pull. So I'm always doing like push pull, for both, those sort of opposing movements. And generally I'm doing 3 or 4 exercises every time, right? So I have a warm up, I get in and I'm having good rest between them. And the leg days are hard for sure, but I always go and I make this little drink for myself. It's a little bit of orange juice, a little bit of coconut water, and some amino acids. And that because what I was noticing that I was getting drained,
Yeah.
like I was getting tired. And so I'm much more sort of focused on how I recover.
That's great. Yeah.
So that's been really key. I always make sure I have a snack before I go, and then I eat a meal, when I'm finished. So that's like my main kind of protocol. And I usually work out in like 8-week segments. And so I'll really lift and be building strength for I think like 6 weeks. And then I'll usually have like a deload week,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so that has been working pretty well. And then I have a travel protocol. So when I travel, I really focus on doing just 3 exercises in the weight room, and we can talk about that later maybe, but my travel protocol has been huge because it gives me a focus, because I used to try to do my full workouts when I was traveling. And it was just exhausting on my whole system. So that's that. I try to, right now I'm going through a phase where I'm like, what would happen if I get 15,000 steps a day? So I generally try to aim for 10,000 steps a day. But I'm like, what would happen if I elevated that standard? And so I'm noticing that like I'm doing now a lot more calls and meetings while walking, just to start, so anyway, I walk every single day. I play soccer once a week. And then usually like I'll do one short sprint workout. And when I'm talking about sprint workout, like it takes me 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'll do like a 7-minute sprint workout. And some days on my rest days, I'll do like a 20-minute zone 2 on the erg machine. So it's easy. It's not hard.
Yeah.
So that's, I could potentially focus more on my cardio conditioning. That's certainly something that if I wanted to make tweaks, I might, and maybe overall flexibility, but that's what I'm doing right now and feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
And jacked.
Yeah. An amazing protocol. And when did this start? A year, 2 years? I mean, again,
so this
yesterday, guys. Okay, this was like yesterday.
No, this really started 2.5 years ago. I got in with my trainer and nutritionist, I would say, oh gosh, almost 3 years ago. I'm going into my 3rd year, and it's been very consistent, for years. And it's interesting, like to see, because I videotape my workouts a lot, and it's so interesting to see the differences. Like you can go and you can just show up and show up and show up and show up and show up. And you're just like, well, that was maybe 2 pounds heavier. Sometimes you just don't you don't feel the progress. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. And then I look back and I'm like, wow, holy crow.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And I recommend that videotaping so often, or at least doing an assessment on yourself, even right after an injury. Because if you have a surgery or an injury, you just feel like you're never going to get better. I mean, I'm never going to get that range of motion back. I'm never. And I'll talk to clients 6 weeks after surgery and say, how are you feeling? I get some information because I have their notes from the first time I saw them, and they don't remember, but I have them. And I'll say, do you remember you couldn't do that before? You couldn't walk up the stairs without pain. And now you're running up the stairs. And they'll say, oh, you're right. I forgot. So you're right. Having that self-assessment, whether it's video or just writing it down, whether you're lifting heavy or whether you are recovering from a surgery, you need to be able to say, I am making progress. You have to be able to celebrate yourself and your victories. You just have to.
I agree, because I think, we're often so blind to our own progress. And I think about like, I try to be inspired by the gap, like the gap between where I am and where I want to go. I really try my hardest to train my brain to see that as inspiration, but to compare myself only to the gain.
Yeah.
And to look at where I was and where I am now, and that I think is really important. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're not comparing yourself to other people that you see online. You're not even comparing yourself to when you were 25, where yes, we probably did have more energy and we could do all the things, but that's not helpful. We aren't that anymore. We have new bodies. We're meant to change. Like we're meant to evolve. So you have to meet your body where it is now.
Yeah.
That's all we have.
Yeah.
Do you find if you hadn't have had a trainer come in throughout the process, do you feel like you would still be where you are now? Like how valuable has an in-person trainer
Hell
been
to the no. Hell to the no. And she's not even in person. So I've had in person.
Okay.
Yeah, I worked primarily with in person trainers, and now I don't work with an in person trainer.
Okay.
Oh, hell to the no. And this is, like, and so I just don't think I outside of someone like a David Goggins,
Yeah.
I really haven't met a lot of people who will who do not benefit from support in their health journeys. I think there's, so I'll give you a couple of examples. I when I'm playing soccer, like I've always been fast, and I'm like, they're not beating me. They are not beating me to this ball. I am going to beat them to this ball. Like I'm, and when I start consistently losing that, you know what I mean, or pulling a hamstring, then I'll probably figure I might not play anymore. But so it's like having people there
Mm-hmm.
helps me see what I can do.
Yeah.
Having a trainer, it's that sort of, I think you pay to pay attention.
Yeah.
Now I understand that that's like having a personal trainer and a personal person doing that is a privilege, but there are group programs, there are apps, there are so many, ways to do this. And I think there's something for a person to say, are you in integrity? Are you aligning the things that you say are important with where you're putting your money, where you're putting your time? I had somebody said to me in the gym the other day, I just have to share it because I mean, you can't let a compliment like this go. And he's like, so I've known him for a long time. He's like, good work, girl. You look like a teenager. And I was like, I am putting in the time.
Yeah.
I'm putting in that time. You know what I mean? Like like hours. So there's a reason, like we are a reflection of where we are putting our time and our money and our energy and our attention. And I do think that, I don't mess around. I'm like, this is so important. And plus the other thing is like, we have learned so much about exercise science, about well-being, about nervous system regulation. Like there have been, when you look at universities, the schools of kinesiology, those are the schools, like they used to be like little departments. Now they're thriving. We've made massive advancements. So a lot of people are like operating in terms of how they think about health, with like a 1980s standard versus, and so I want to be around people who have that expertise that can really help. So no, there's no way, I'm never not doing this without somebody in my corner or a team of people in my corner.
Yeah. And like you said, there's apps. I mean, there are free things on YouTube. And a lot of times, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I guess thankful to 2020 for allowing us to have so much online and Zoom.
Yes.
But there really are trainers you could do maybe a one introductory session to at least say, is what I'm doing appropriate? Is it worth my time? And they can at least help guide you to say, yes, no, try this, here, use this resource, and then leave you to your own devices and you can meet with them again in 6 weeks. But I agree, just knowing if what you're doing is efficient and even working. And that can be the really hard thing is we can get into that consistency. But if we don't check in with ourselves every 6 weeks, every 3 months, we could do that same thing for a year and nothing has changed.
Yeah, nothing.
It's hard.
Exactly. Yeah. And I do think because it is like in strength training, it's this concept of progressive overload. So you're just adding a little bit, so the workout isn't the same, unless I feel sick or, whatever, but it's like more weight is going on or more reps are going on. Something is getting elevated today. That's it, right? We're raising the bar a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot,
right? No.
But it's that. And I think that's where, to me, my health journey has been so integrated and so critical to business because health is like where I see things first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think there's like so many analogies, and it was interesting. We were talking beforehand, like I had an event recently in Toronto and it was like a business event. Everything I do is business. It's about growing your business. And one of the women, someone was asking me something. It was over dinner and we were just kind of chatting and they were asking me if I'd done something. I was like, well, I'm on my travel health protocol right now, which I just need a protocol. And then I'm like, just give me a plan. And then I feel like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, you know what? I would really like to hear about that,
Yeah.
because that is the part that I actually find in some ways most valuable. It's just kind of seeing that you're prioritizing this. And that made me so happy, because I share my workouts just because it's who I am, and I can't, I just have to do it. But I think, when we prioritize our well-being, I think about like AI a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, and AI is starting to take over. People say, but what AI can't do is be a human whose presence and standards transform you.
Yeah.
Because they inspire us, And so, like, I remember watching your journey through your health, and I can remember having like a bit of a scare, and you were who I thought of. So I had to go like get some tests and get some, and I literally was like, Jessica went through this. She, you know what I mean? She talked about this. She's been through this. If she has gone through this, and I can go through this.
Yeah.
And so I think that, again, it's like the sisterhood and sharing our past and journeys, and the things that allow us to show up at a level 10, is so transformative.
And I think too, so many times we think it's one or the other. Okay, I can focus on my health or my business.
Yeah.
I can focus on my health or being a good mom. I can focus on taking care of my elderly parents or business owner. It's always or, which I get. I mean, it feels like we have so many plates spinning in the air. But when you can find a way to integrate them, that they're all part of you. I mean, it's all part of the pie of what makes you you. So how can you kind of integrate them and understand they're just going to, like you said, elevate you in all other areas? I mean, truly, when I work out, or when I just say, kids, mom's got to take a walk. The sun is shining. I'm going to take a walk. They don't think, oh, mom's a bad mom. Well, hopefully they don't. I don't think they do. But I'm a better mom when I come back. Yeah. And it's just kind of the way it works, but it can feel really hard to get past that. And I know you are so powerful in talking to women about their integrating money, wealth, all of that, and health. How, and this might be a big question, but knowing women and that we do have a hard time with that, how would you say that works with health also? Like, how is that all integrated?
Yeah. I think women really live with a big perfection paradox that we're always navigating. And I think it's actually one of the primary unconscious, subconscious drivers of our behavior and results. So women, one of the things that makes us amazing is how inspired we are by perfection, by a standard of perfection. And we often look at that as a bad thing. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think if you look at women and how we evolve, we're constantly sharing new things. Like, I got this beef tallow cream. Like, we're constantly sharing with each other new ways to grow and to be better. And so when we accuse people of being perfectionists, so it's a bad thing, I actually think that, being inspired by standards of perfection is very central to who women are and how we operate. It's our operating system, and it can create a lot of good, On the other hand, so I think every woman who's listening to this, present company included, has a vision of how we could improve our health and well-being, and that growth and evolution, I just really feel like it's central to womanhood.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we also have this other thing, which is not too perfect.
Right.
Because if we do that, we fear the consequences of what people will say, of what people will do. I had experience the other day where I was out at a track meet, a kids track meet, and I ran into some women who I used to play soccer with, and they're not playing anymore. And they're like, I can't believe you're still playing. And I had this moment where, am I like one of these old, you know what I mean? Like it was very much like this kind of funny moment, or like sometimes I will be at the gym in my awesome gym outfits and I'm like, I'm the oldest person. Is this okay? Right. So it's like that whole thing of like standing out can feel very and is and has been very threatening to women. So we're
Yeah.
constantly toggling between our just inherent desire for growth and the inspiration of perfection and the knowledge of not wanting to be too perfect. So just really staying under the radar. And that creates a ton of cognitive dissonance for
Mm,
women around our health journeys. So,
mm,
for instance, I can remember talking to a woman who lost quite a bit of weight, and it was shifting how people in her family and her friends were relating to her. So it was that not too perfect. And so she exceeded their expectations of her. And now she's uncomfortable. Now she has to. So it was her health journey that created a new change. And she really has to risk the discomfort of making new friends as an adult because she's evolving faster than the people around her. So this is a central challenge for so many women that we don't talk about. And I think, health journeys are a part, like they can certainly trigger that.
Oh, absolutely. That is such a perfect way to say it because, yes, that idea of too perfect, we never want to be there. We want
No.
some attention, but not too much attention.
Yeah.
We want to do a good job, but we don't want anyone to think that we think we're better than them. Right? Like, okay, all the bake sales at school. I mean, the amount of stress of what should I bring? I can't bring something that's store bought because that's not enough. But I can't do completely homemade because that's too much.
Right. Yeah.
We're always comparing, yeah, whether it's money, time, mom, caretaker. And yes, absolutely, that goes into our health too. And we
Yes.
talk so much about you need to, and I think it's more than like we hear, okay, you just have to believe you're worthy, right? That's the tagline all over.
Always.
Just believe you're worthy. Yes, but it's so much deeper than that. It's
Yeah.
so much deeper. I mean, I can believe I'm valuable, but then I need so much more to also feel accepted to the next level. And I
Yes.
think having that community around you is really important. And maybe that's where that social media and those online sessions come in too, so that you know you're not alone. If you don't have that community in person, you can find it online. I mean, you've cultivated that for
Yeah.
business owners online, and there's so much value to it.
Yeah. Because it's like this little piece of us that needs to trigger or support, both trigger and
Mhm.
support in each other
Yeah.
a little bit of that, like badass a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I say that because, I don't know if you remember, like 5 years ago, it was badass this, badass that,
Yeah.
like everything was badass. And so, I'm not talking about that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, when when you are really expressing who you are, when your actions are starting to line up with what you want for yourself, when I would call that like fully expressed and embodied.
Mhm.
And I think for many women, that is actually the primary motivating factor. It's a true desire for wholeness. And so, being inspired by perfection, that's the thing that helps us see, hey, this could be possible for me.
Mhm.
And so we move toward it. And what we want is that we are expressing on the outside and living on the outside. And we are looking on the outside as we feel on the inside. Like we're truly expressing who we are. And I think usually by the time a woman is in her late 30s,
Yeah.
certainly in her 40s and 50s, this actually becomes a primary motivator and driver for her. And anything that prevents that creates a real feeling of it feels off.
Yeah.
And in order to really express who she is, what we have to educate women around is you won't really feel safe.
Yeah.
You're going to feel it will require that you break the law
Mhm.
of being a good woman, which is being agreeable all the time. Your choices and decisions, even your schedule and routine, some people might find it a little bit disagreeable. And so then as long as we know that and we can talk to each other about that, then we can each navigate being disagreeable to ourselves. Like, is it convenient that I'm going to the gym or I'm having my walk or not always, it's not always convenient for people around me. And that's okay. It also doesn't mean I have to be a jerk about it. Like I work with my husband and my family, but I'm not apologizing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amen. That is it.
Yeah.
Amen. That's the word. That's the word right there. Oh my gosh, hours. I'm not kidding. Hours I could talk to you
Right?
about this.
Same.
Tell everybody where they can find you, all your offerings.
Well, look, if you want to see me pursuing my 225 squats with full range of motion,
Okay, cool.
then it's definitely Instagram, and it's just you'll see it there. It's just there. You got to remind people. Listen, you got to remind people. So you can follow me on Instagram at Eleanor Beaton, and if you like podcasting, I have podcasts. I have a podcast called Woman Owned, the growth podcast for women entrepreneurs. So it's very much a business focused show. I need to have you on there, Jessica.
Yes, I would
Yes,
love
we
to.
need we
I
need
love your
to,
podcast.
right?
Yes.
Yes. So I think those are the two best places. Come and get to know me, and I think through that, if there's stuff that if you'd like to explore working together, just reach out. Yeah.
Yes. And even if you don't own a business, I'm telling you, go listen to the podcast. It's so inspiring. Like you really will hear women having real conversations about getting outside of their comfort zones and exploring new ways to be a business owner. It truly is like you will just feel fired up. So even if you don't own a business, it's for you. I promise. It's a great podcast.
Oh, thank you for that endorsement. I so appreciate that.
Love it. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it and all that you put out into the world.
I loved talking about this. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you soon.